Shadow from Media Talk. You mentioned just now that Serangoon has a slightly different profile, high number of private stations. In your view, do you think it's harder to reach out to these residents? Second question is, in hindsight, do you think there could be things that you have done differently that could, have mitigated or reverse the trend?
Of course, there will always be gaps that in the way we serve the residents that can be addressed. But it is quite clear to us that the outcome is not because of that. That might have changed the result marginally. In fact, I think the Workers' Party themselves said as much, that this is really a national battle. They have decided on Aljunied as the target, and voters were forced to make a national decision. So this is how we see it. That's not to say that everything is perfect, and we think we have served residents very well and there's no cause for them to be unhappy. I think needs evolve and change all the time. So whoever is serving them would need to make sure that they are constantly in touch with the residents' desires and needs, and to attempt to meet them in the same way. Over the past 15 years, what I've noticed is the degree of engagement or the wish for greater engagement has risen sharply over the last many years. And this is again positive because I think people are now taking ownership of the environment, the larger environment. But it also makes it more complicated and more challenging because you need to now consult more people, you need to now get a greater consensus, and sometimes it is hard to get consensus for something as simple as whether you should draw a white line down the middle of the road. But people expect to be consulted a whole lot more than, say, 15 years ago when I started out as an MP. And whoever is looking after them, whether it's the Workers' Party or the PAP, they need to take this on board and be really certain that they are able to engage residents and yet arrive at an outcome that would be least objectionable to everyone.
So do you think, the follow-up question is, do you think it is because of the policies or the execution of the policies or the process of coming up with these policies then?
I would say that for the private estate residents, it will be more the national issues, I think, that will have a greater impact rather than the local issues. There will be local issues like parking and all that. But in this case, my sense is I think the national issues had a greater bearing.
Just going on to that, in Serangoon, there was also the issue of reform of the job retreat. Do you think that, I mean, you said you tend to focus on national issues, but do you think that would be a factor as well?
Yes, that particular example I think has both. It obviously has the local impact in that people were unhappy about a dom just springing up in the backyard. But the national impact is one of perhaps the admission of foreigners into the country, what the pace is, whether government has consulted sufficiently. So those are the common threads running through not just the dom issue but across many other issues as well. Now the constant refrain that you hear is, but we have not been consulted. So I think the desire to be engaged and the desire to be a part of the whole decision-making process is a good one, is a positive one. It is also one that would require quite a different approach on the part of government.
Minister Yeo said that he would still want to contribute towards the transformation within the PAP. Would you want to do that as well? And secondly, on another day, on another fight, would you think that PAP will still win Aljunied if you don't meet the 80?
Well, certainly I would be very happy to participate in the transformation of the PAP as well, because I believe very much in the same views or challenges that Minister George Yeo has articulated. As to whether the PAP can win back Aljunied again, I think a lot depends on whether the opposition, in this case Workers' Party, decides to make this a national issue. And if so, then I think the alternate voters will continue to be burdened with that same national weight of having to decide on behalf of the whole country. One can question whether there is an unfair weight placed on them, but I think the voters themselves will have to decide whether they want to take up the weight or they would want to vote according to their own sort of interest. A lot depends on how we now marshal our resources on the ground, but certainly the PEP will want to fight very hard to win back our unit. And judging by the response, very strong response from some of the residents who have obviously voted for us and found to the horror that it didn't turn out the way that they wanted, I think there's a lot of wish, or there's a lot of passion and wish on the ground that they want the PEP to be back. So how we harness that support, how we organize ourselves would be key to whether we can win back our unit.
So just following up on the question on contributing to the PEP as well, will you continue as the chair of the Women's Wing? Have you made a successor? Especially because you just revealed the new mission and vision of the Women's Wing. So what will happen to the goal of widening the outreach?
Mm-hmm. Well, in the case of the party components, I mean the Women's Wing in this case, the goals and the aims always survive the incumbents. So even though I had a hand in leading the change and in redefining the mission, it does not mean that I have to be around for the next X years to see that through. The party and I strongly believe in renewal, and I've held that position for about 10 years already. So it is actually, even if I've been re-elected back, it would actually be timely for a change at some stage.
So is there someone else already in mind?
No, this is something we would have to decide and inform you in due course.